Okay, our team is sorting the questions. What I would like to do is perhaps to dive into a few questions that we have already. And this really could be aimed at either of you, so if you would like to respond, just chime in. How do you respond to the assertion that 9 out of the 10 warmest years on record have occurred since 2005?
Right.
Agreed.
Let us go back 750 million years to the Neoproterozoic era. I remember that well, too. Now, in that time, the carbon dioxide concentration was 7,000 parts per million, and yet the planet did not fry. Now the concentration, is it 70,000 parts per million? No, it's 400 parts per million. And if we tried as we might and emitted all the carbon dioxide that we could possibly dig up from the ground and burn the various coal, oil and gas, we couldn't really push it up much above 1,200, whatever we do. So are we facing some kind of climate disaster, even if they are right about how much warming a doubling of CO2 might cause? The answer is no. So this is not an unprecedented situation. We have seen far, far higher concentrations of CO2 in the past. We have seen far, far higher temperatures in the past. Typically, over most of the last 500, 600 million years, it's been 10 Celsius degrees higher than it is today. If you go back just over the last 810,000 years, then the temperatures have varied only by about 3 Celsius up or down from where they are today. And that is because under modern conditions, the temperature can't change very much. So don't worry, be happy, enjoy the sunshine.
I just want to say that I think that in the satellite era, 9 of the last 10 years are the warmest on record. But it's like having a guy that bench presses 400 pounds, bench pressing 401 pounds, and saying, there, look at how much improvement I've made. The fact is, folks, the hotter it is, I shouldn't say hotter, warmer. The Earth is not hot, it's not burning up. All right, they put those red colors on there. It's, what's the temperature, 57, 58 degrees Fahrenheit? It's
yeah,
the average, or
right.
whatever. But that, most of us be wearing sweaters during that time, okay, if it's 57, 58 degrees. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to exaggerate this situation. And if you understand thermodynamics, you understand energy and how energy drives the system. The warmer it gets, the tougher it is to get warmer. Not only that, you got Le Chatelier's principle. It's a French word. I know. Le Chatelier's principle, which says all systems are searching for an equilibrium and basically can't find it. So you see the fight back going on. When you saw all this rain in the Central Plains, that is a sign that the atmosphere is not warming according to what they're saying. Because when you warm up aloft, you do increase the water vapor, but you warm up, like they said, a big heat-trapping ridge over the United States. Guess what? It's not going to rain. That's why they bid on that Dust Bowl idea, that perma-drought idea. So all these things, just remember that. The more extreme something is, the harder it is to get more extreme. What they're trying to sell you is what they call a tipping point, where it just gets here and it's not the stock market that breaks through a technical position.
So it's a very complex topic, and it's hard sometimes for people to talk about climate because of the great level of detail there. So one of the questions that has been asked is, what's the best quick reference? I don't know if quick reference is even possible, but to the extent that people can find facts as concisely and well organized as possible, where should they go? What's the best place for them to go to?
Go to YouTube and watch any speech by the Viscount Monkton of Britain.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of interesting in that it's like, you know, if someone went up to Derek Jeter and says, where can I quickly learn to play shortstop, right? We're Red Sox fans around here. I'm just saying that there's no quick and dirty way to just get this stuff down if you really want to dig into it. But common sense has a lot to do with the answer. Common sense. And knowing what happened before and understanding some of the basics of the way weather and climate react and understand how the Earth has always been going back and forth should lead to the intuitive idea that there is a very strong possibility this might be natural. How's that?
And there is a website you can go to which is called whatsupwiththat.com.
Very good
WATTS.
very good
upwiththat.com.
I was going to say,
That is an extremely good website. Most of the pieces, other than the ones I write, of course, are in relatively plain American English so that even you can understand.
yeah, I should plug, you know, my book is a compilation of blogs that I did in the Patriot Post, but if every Google Joe Bastardi Patriot Post, there's like 300 blogs in there covering various situations if you want to go reference that.
Read the moral case for fossil.
Alex
Very
Epstein,
good. Yep.
that says it all.
Yep, I've heard very good things about that book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. We had a couple of questions about the effect of, or the potential effect of solar activity, the current grand solar minimum, solar winds, sunspots, in potential magnetic pole shift. But can you talk about some of these other potential effects on climate?
Let's start with the sun. The sun is the big enchilada. We are frankly not. The sun is where it's at. Now, at the moment, we're going through what might prove to be a grand solar minimum. And the last time a really grand solar minimum happened was about 300 years ago. I remember it well. And at that time, the world got quite a lot colder because there were virtually no sunspots on the sun for around 60 or 70 years. It was a really big solar minimum. We haven't had anything quite like that since. Some people, Professor Willie Soon, for instance, say that we might be going into one of those again now. If so, then we can expect it to get a little bit colder, but thanks to our having emitted plenty of CO2 into the atmosphere, it certainly won't be as bad as it was 300 years ago. So there are advantages to emitting CO2, and it's worth looking at some of those advantages. For one thing, the net primary productivity of plants, which is the total plant biomass, the weight of all the leaves and branches and trees and plants on Earth, has actually gone up by between 15 and 30% over the last 30 years, depending on which scientific paper you believe. And that is an enormous increase thanks to what's called CO2 fertilization. So when you've got the sun shining, and there are cosmic rays also, that influences it. But if we take the major effect of the sun, supposing it does decline, it would have to decline for at least 60 years before we would really notice any cooling. Because as far as we can tell, the change in temperature goes in accordance with what's called the 60-year time integral of the solar radiation. Because the solar radiation from peak to trough of its natural 11-year cycle varies only by something like 0.02%. It's a very, very small change. So the sun does have an influence, but only if you integrate its influence over relatively long periods. We can cause a much shorter term influence by putting CO2 into the atmosphere, but that is far more beneficial through plant fertilization than it is harmful. So bring on the CO2, keep on emitting it, and we will green the planet together.
There's a lot of heat stored in the oceans. And I think that, you know, I get into arguments with these, you know, little ice age now, a lot of people, and that I don't think they like me taking my stand on it. But you temperatures aren't going anywhere down until we get rid of the heat in the oceans. Now, the way I look at it is before that last grand solar minimum, there was another one that was 200 years long before it. We've had 200 years of high sunspot activity preceding this one, and the result has to be different. So I'm not worried about the Earth going into, where it was back when Lord Monckton was skating across the Thames back there in 1805. And since he says he's been here since 750. Maybe he is. Maybe he's actually God. My son thinks he's God.
No, I'm an angel.
Croc TV.